Hello and welcome to the classic Hollywood movie you should know. I'm Nate Washburn. This week the movie is from 1941, The Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart and Mary Astor, directed by John Huston. Now the gist of The Maltese Falcon, this is one of the greatest examples of a detective movie, a film noir ever made. Humphrey Bogart plays Sam Spade. Him and his partner, Miles Archer, are hired by this mysterious woman to follow a man named Thursby. Archer ends up dead, Thursby ends up dead, and Sam Spade gets entangled into this really mysterious, really questionable world that is populated by these criminals who are all searching for this priceless artifact called the Maltese Falcon. Now, this movie is one of the earliest and best examples of film noir, and noir sort of became huge in Hollywood during the 1940s. As with everything that happened with the war and the world at the time, people were taking a more cynical view of everyone around them. And so these movies, these film noir movies, are classified because all of their characters have flaws. There's no like out and out hero and out villain. The story usually has some sort of mystery element, murder element, darkness to it, questionable activities occur. And the camera work, the angles are all slightly askew, like characters are shot from below or above. And the whole set work, there's typically a lot of shadows and then harsh, bright lights that just, it all works to keep audience members and the characters on their feet. Like nothing is exactly as it seems. Again, the world is a cynical place. Everyone has problems and flaws. That's the best way that I've come to know film noir. Now, The Maltese Falcon was a story written by Dashiell Hammett. It was bought by Warner Brothers and made into two movies before this. One called The Maltese Falcon in 1931, and one called Satan Met a Lady, starring Bette Davis, in 1936. Neither of those movies were huge hits. Warner Brothers didn't have much faith in this material, and yet once John Huston made this version of the Maltese Falcon in 1941, it has become iconic. Humphrey Bogart as Sam Spade, as the fedora-wearing detective, the way that he talks, sort of the whole mystery aspect of it, the black and white cinematography, it has become so iconic and so identified in sort of American pop culture that when you think of a private detective, it's almost like you immediately picture Humphrey Bogart as Sam Spade. And that almost like stops people from watching this movie because it's like people feel like they know this movie without having seen it. And it really is so well done. I mean, what makes this movie are the performances. Humphrey Bogart, he is the, quote unquote hero. Again, his character is very flawed, but he is the hero of the Maltese Falcon. And the only reason he got that role is because actor George Raft, who was a bigger star than Bogart, turned it down. Raft didn't want to work with John Huston. This was John Huston's directorial debut. Raft turns it down, Huston got Bogart, and this really made Bogart's career and turned him into a megastar. And Mary Astor as Bridget O'Shaughnessy, she layers in so much into this performance. She really does seem like a dangerous, promiscuous, manipulative woman who Sam Spade should not trust. It's really, really well done. And the other two big stars in this movie to sort of round out the cast were Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet. They're fantastic. Lorre as Joel Cairo and Sidney Greenstreet as Casper Gutman. They had such great on-screen chemistry that this was the first of what would be 9 pairings between the two actors, between Lorre and Greenstreet. And this was the first of 3 pairings between Lorre, Greenstreet, and Humphrey Bogart. Their most successful and most well-known, of course, being Casablanca. And when this movie came out in 1941, it was a massive hit. It even surprised Warner Brothers. And John Huston became one of the most successful directors of all time, directing such films as Treasure of the Sierra Madre, The African Queen. He worked all the way up through the 1970s and into the 1980s. Now, when the Oscar nominations came out in 1942, The Maltese Falcon got 3 nominations. It got Best Adapted Screenplay for John Huston, got Best Supporting Actor for Sidney Greenstreet, and it got nominated for Best Picture. And a little bit of trivia, Sidney Greenstreet, he was a very successful British stage actor. The Maltese Falcon is the first time he had done a film in his career. He ended up having a very successful film career until he passed away, but this is the first movie that he did, and he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. So if you're a fan of mystery movies, if you like detective stories, suspenseful films, check out The Maltese Falcon from 1941. Hugely influential. It made Humphrey Bogart an A-list star, and it's highly recommended, and this week's classic Hollywood movie you should know. I'm Nate Washburn. Keep watching.